Hi everyone, welcome today to our English class. So today we're going to be doing something really exciting. We're going to be talking about tourism, traveling, and imagining that we are a tour guide. So as a tour guide, that means that we are showing people like a place, and we need to tell people information about this place. It could be a monument, a statue, it could be a building. So we are going to learn how do we talk about a building. Okay, so imagining that we are tour guide and giving information, the history of the building, the most important information about it, what's interesting to know about it. Okay, so looking at English expressions that we can do that, and not just as a tour guide, we can even as, people that travel to places, you want to tell your friends about what did you see on your trip. So let's look at some ways that we can talk about that. But first, before we do that, let's have a look at a tour of London. So this is a city in the UK, a tour of London in England. And I can see that I have, like a bridge. There's a high-rise building. So I can see that there's a building, lots of light. So it says here, London is an interesting mixture of old and modern buildings. So it's asking us, why do we think people like living in London? Why do tourists go there? So maybe people like living in London because it's a city that has a lot of history. Maybe because it's a city that is close to everything in Europe. And it's a city that's quite busy. It's doing well. It's got a good economy. It's got great public transport. It's got a lot of activities that you could do there. And the schools are great. Maybe that's why people like to live there. So let's look at some vocab for some building structure, places that could be in a city. So we have a football pitch. A football pitch would be this one, okay? It's like saying a football stadium. That's where you go to watch people playing soccer, football, rugby, whatever sport. But in this one, it's a football pitch. A gherkin. This one's a gherkin. It's like a cucumber, the vegetable cucumber, but it's been pickled. It's been put in vinegar and made into a gherkin. A cheese grater. So this one, you put the cheese and you can make it into like this. You can see the block of cheese. And a panel of glass. That's this image here. It just means like a sheet of glass. Okay, a panel is like this bit here, a panel of glass. We see that on a lot of new buildings. A walkie-talkie. So if you remember from 10, 20, 30 years ago, this was very popular, especially with kids. They could talk on it and they can be far away and they can hear each other. Okay, a talkie-walkie, because you can talk and walk at the same time. Okay, so let's watch a tour guide in London. It's a little short video, and we're seeing someone talking about places in London. So let's listen to the way that he introduces himself. Let's listen to how he talks about the buildings, and answer some of these questions. So which places does he talk about first? So these are places: the River Thames, the Tower of London, the Gherkin, the Shard, the Cheese Grater, Tower Bridge, the Walkie-Talkie. So these are places in London. Okay, let's watch the video. Which one does he talk about first?
The building in front of you is the Shard. It is 310 meters high, it has over 80 floors, and it is made out of 11,000 panels of glass. That is the same as 8 football pitches. That's the end of this part of the tour. Before we go on to the next part, we'll have a cup of coffee. But does anyone have any questions?
Okay, so you could see that he showed us a lot of different places in the city, okay, of London, a lot of different places. And when he showed us some of these places, which one did he show us first? We know that it was the River Thames. So this is the first one that he showed us. He said it's the longest river. Remember, it's the longest river in England. The next one was the Tower of London, which is 1,000 years old. Then he showed us the Tower Bridge. Okay, so the first one was the River Thames. And then he showed us the Tower of London. And then the Tower Bridge. Then we saw the Gherkin. Then we saw the cheese grater. So remember, these are names for the buildings. And then we saw the walkie-talkie. And the last one, the Shard. So that was some interesting places in London. And he didn't just tell us the name of the building or the bridge or the river. He also gave us some information about it. So that's always important, that when you talk about what did you see on your trip, that you don't just say what you saw, but that you're able to give some information about it, maybe the history or something interesting and exciting, fact, information. Like he said about the River Thames, that's where the city was founded. That's where the city first started, and it was by the Romans. So that was really interesting information. And if you notice, the tour guide, he had a very interesting, he said, "Hi, everyone, welcome." And then at the end, he asked if anyone had any questions. So that's always really important, that same thing as when you're speaking to your friends and you're telling them about a great place that you saw on your trip, that you're able to say to them, what did you find interesting? Do you want to ask me anything? Okay, let's answer some questions. So we know that Keith grew up in London. So he grew up in London. So when you grow up somewhere, that means that that is where you spent your childhood. So you'd say, I grew up in Vietnam. I grew up in Australia. Eloise grew up in Brazil. That's where she spent her childhood year. It doesn't mean that she was born there, but she spent a lot of her childhood year there. So the man that gave us the tour, he grew up in London. The River Thames is the longest river. Do you remember that that was the longest river in London? And it was 360 kilometers long. It was the longest river, 360 kilometers. long. London was founded by the Romans. So founded means that that's who created the city. And when? 2,000 years ago. So London is 2,000 years old. Okay, unlike Australia, Australia is only 200 and something years old. London is 2,000 years old. So by the Romans created the city. The roadway on Tower Bridge lifts up in the middle. So you remember when he talked about the bridge, that it opens up, it lifts up in the middle so that the ships can pass through. So interesting information about the bridge. The Gherkin building is round and has black, okay, it has black top. The cheese grater building is taller. So remember, we're comparing using our adjectives. It is taller than the gherkin. The walkie-talkie gets wider at the top. And the Shard building is the tallest building in Western Europe. It is made up of 11,000 panels of glass, which is equal to 8 football fields. So what was really interesting, did you notice how he showed us the ancient old buildings and then he showed us new buildings? And if you noticed on the new buildings, it was a lot of glass on the new ones, whereas the old ones were made from stones and, you know, amazingly built. We don't build like that today. So it's interesting that he showed us some old buildings and also the new buildings and gave us a bit of history about it. Okay, so if you're imagining that you are the tour guide, you're showing someone a place, just like this man in the video, you always have to have a nice introduction. So he said, "Good morning and welcome to the tour." So you could say something like, "Hi, everyone. Welcome today to look at this marvelous building, which I'm going to tell you about." So you can give some people a nice introduction to welcome them, to say something like, "Hi, everyone. I hope that you are all well, that you're all enjoying your tour so far." A nice little introduction before you give details about the building. So he said his good morning. You can have, "Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Hope you're all great to see you all," something like that. Then he said his intention. What does he want to do? So today I'm going to show you around the city of London. So he's letting you know this is what we are going to do. Okay, before I tell you details about all the buildings, I'm going to show you around. Okay, now he said in the beginning, number 6, this is, so these are just expressions. So when you talk about a building, you can say this is. So he said, this is the River Thames, this is the Tower Bridge, this is the Shard. So whatever the name of the building is, you have to say this is. Okay, so these are just expressions, which means, you know, what can we say when we're telling everyone about our tour? So this is the words that you say. This is also when you're talking, introducing your friend to someone else, it's the same word. This is Maria and this is Mario. So the same thing when we introduce people, that's how we talk about a building. So this is the Eiffel Tower. This is the Colosseum. Now, first you say the name of it, and then you should give some details, maybe the history. So he said it's famous because ... So you could say something, it's famous because, or you could say, this is one of the oldest buildings because, or this is an incredible building because, and then you can give details. So tell us the history. Why is it famous? What's interesting about it? So you can talk about details. Now let's look at another famous London site. So when he wants to talk about a different building, he now says, now let's. So he's moving from one topic to another. So you don't want to just quickly talk about the next building. You want to let the people know, okay, now I'm going to talk about another building. So straight ahead, that means in front of you. So if you're showing someone, you can say straight ahead. If it's to your right, further to the right, that just means like all the way to your right, you can see. So he's showing you that if you look this way, you can see whatever building. Okay, so after he gives all the detail, he then says, that's the end of the tour. So now you want to close up your guide. You want to tell everyone, okay, everyone, we've finished the tour. That's the end of the tour. Do you have any questions? Okay, that was from the video, but we are going to create our own. Imagine you are a tour guide. Tell us about a monument. So a monument is like a structure, a building, something that is very, very important that's been built by humans, or maybe it's from nature. It could be something that's just natural. So if you have a look, you could see the Colosseum from Italy, the Eiffel Tower, the Western Wall in Israel, the German Great Wall, I think it's called, and the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Sydney, the Opera House. So these are places, monuments, and you are going to imagine that you're a tour guide. So let's have a look at some examples. So Santiago says, so remember, you got to have the structure, nice introduction, give details about the building, and then close off. So he says, hi, everyone, and welcome to Jerusalem, Israel. Where we are standing is here at the Western Wall, or as it's also known, the Wailing Wall. This is the remaining foundation that was part of the last temple for Israelites. It was built in 20 BC by Herod the Great. That is 20 years before Christ. Jesus himself would come here, and when he was in Jerusalem. It is in the architectural style of the old Roma, and it is the most sacred place for Judaism. The wall is 19 meters high and 488 meters long, but you can only see 60 meters of it. That is because the rest of the wall is underground. Religious Orthodox Jews come here to pray. While here, it is also common to write a prayer or request to God. You can see that there are two different sections. One is for the men and the other is for the women. This happens because for Judaism, women are regarded as sacred. Today, anyone of any faith can come here to pray or just to observe the last remaining structure of the temple. Okay, so that was nice. He imagined that he was introducing this wall, and he gave you details, history, and amazing facts about the structure. And that's an image of it here. So you could see he was talking about this wall, the Western Wall. Okay, Louis says, this is Louis. So he is in France. It's a museum in Paris. And he says, hello, guys. Welcome to the Louvre, I think, a famous museum in Paris. I will be your guide. I think he made it like a, he's got a conversation. Hello, we would like to know more about this museum. Sure, the Louvre Museum is France's national museum dedicated to both art, archaeology, and the decorative arts. It is located in Paris, the country's capital, in the formal royal palace of the Louvre. Okay, it's a conversation, so it's a little bit different, but let's look at the next one. So this is the Colosseum in Italy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Colosseum. You can see a sand and gravel pit behind us. This was the largest structure in the center of ancient Rome. It was built between 70 AD and 80 AD and is 48 meters tall. It was used as a theater which could fit 50 to 80,000 people. Mainly, people came to see gladiator competitions here. Now, it's the last remaining old structure in Rome. In the movie Mission Impossible: Reckoning Part 1, most of the scene where Tom Cruise and the heroin race were filmed here. Today, for only 23 euros, you can enter this amazing place. So really good, not just information about the structure, but modern, like something that's interesting right now, that there's a movie that is filmed there with Tom Cruise. So that's really interesting facts. And the year, how tall it is, what's the entrance fee? I like that. Okay, Shirley then talks about this, the Great Wall of Berlin. And she says, good morning and welcome to the tour. Today, I'm going to show you around the historic Berlin Wall. Our first stop will be the east side of the wall, where you'll see amazing artwork that show Berlin's history and the destruction of the wall. This wall is 160 kilometers long. It goes through the heart of the city and near the border between West Berlin and Brandenburg. This wall stood for 28 years. Many unforgettable stories happened here. Some people crossed it while others lost their lives trying to. Some people even dug tunnels and managed to escape. Today, many people come here to see it and remember the history. Okay, so you can see that when you are imagining that you're a tour guide or just as a natural conversation with your friends and you're telling them about what did you see on your trip, this is how you would talk about it. So you would give them a bit of detail. History is always good to start with the history. And then, you know, how tall is it? When was it built? Who built it? What's important facts? Now, really important is make the English simple. You don't want to talk like you're reading something off the internet. So you want to make it very casual conversation, and exciting. So, you know, tell them important facts. Don't talk about everything, just what is important about the building. Okay, so that's talking about a monument like a place, a structure, a building. And always remember as well that when you talk about a place, if you are describing it to someone, have an introduction first. So say something like, I'm going to tell you about the Eiffel Tower that I went to on my last trip. So have a little bit of an introduction before you start giving details about the Eiffel Tower. And then at the end, close it off by saying, so that was what I did on my trip. That's what I saw. And also don't forget, you can add how you feel about it, not just the history and the details of it, but also say, you know, for me, it was the most amazing experience I ever had. There were so many people there. It was so crazy busy, you know, so you can also talk about how you felt with your experience being there. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. So that's how we talk about monuments and places that we see. There's lots of expressions, but the most important thing is keep your English simple. Don't talk like you're giving facts from the internet, because then it sounds boring. Okay, it is a conversation, so it's meant to be fun. And you can even change your voice. So when you're excited, like say, oh my God, it was just so busy or whatever, you know, show excitement in your voice, because then the person that's listening will also be excited to hear. Okay, so that's all we have for talking about a monument, a tour of a place. Yes.